Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well. I wish I could be there with you. My name is Quema Ledbetter, and I am a student in DBA 850. Today, I'd like to take 20 minutes to brief you on the rapid evidence assessment that will assist me in formulating the topic for my doctoral dissertation. The headings on this poster will guide the presentation. The problem I am exploring is public sector hiring. The public sector is responsible for guiding humanity through so many life and death issues, things like hunger, war, poverty, and climate change. The civil servants must be caring, competent individuals to tackle such weighty issues, and public sector hiring is the way that civil servants are selected. There's no way to measure if the civil servants we have now are the best selections, but we must make sure that we are using evidence-based hiring processes that will maximize our chances for selecting the best people for the civil service. So, enter artificial intelligence. The public sector is already using artificial intelligence to perform many human resources management tasks, including screening resumes and conducting interviews. Public sector organizations are now looking to use AI to inform decision making, including hiring decisions. Although the debate continues as to whether AI should be utilized for decision making, the train has left the station. Organizations are adopting AI for decision making. It's inevitable that AI will be incorporated into all components of the hiring process, determining job requirements, finding job candidates, screening resumes, conducting interviews, and hiring candidates. So now the question becomes how. And that leads us to the research or the REA question that I pose, which is what are the best practices for incorporating AI into public sector hiring decisions? So, again, the the whole point is that AI is being adopted, and that's happening. So now the question is, how do we make sure that as it happens, we are using the best practices, especially in such a critical area as public service hiring decisions? To help answer this question, I am using a lens model developed by Akuli and Meenakshi. They developed it in 2014 and it describes the recruitment decision-making process using job competencies. Akuli and Meenakshi adapted their model from the seminal Brunswick lens model, which was developed in 1956. The lens model is a framework that helps us understand how decisions are made, how judgments are made. The decision maker uses a set of cues, that is, decision criteria, to make a judgment resulting in the target variable. In the context of hiring decisions, the decision maker is the hiring manager. The cues are job competencies, and the target variable is the score assigned to a potential job candidate. In making judgments under the lens model framework, the decision maker prioritizes cues. So a hiring manager may decide that, job experience is the most important cue, the most important criteria, and weight that cue, twice as much as the next criteria, which might be like outgoing personality, for instance. Um, the lens model acknowledges that the cues being used by the decision makers to make a judgment must be the right cues that will result in decisions yielding a good outcome. Cue utility is also acknowledged in the model. This is all about making sure that the decision maker actually uses the criteria, the cues, to make the judgment or decision. Some hiring managers may opt to hire based on a gut feeling, or one of their colleagues said this person is a good worker, and the actual cues and criteria are not utilized. If we look at the theoretical framework in the lower left-hand portion of the poster, we see an oval circle in the middle of the diagram that represents the lens of perception that all of us humans must navigate. The X variables within the lens are the job competencies that the hiring manager or recruiter uses to make judgments about the target variable, and how those scores would be assigned. In the model, the X variables are weighted. So X1 might be experience, X2, outgoing personality, and the hiring manager may decide that experience is 2 times more important than an outgoing personality and adjust the scoring formulas accordingly. You'll also see there on the right, you'll see the Y variables, and those are the different recruiters or hiring managers that would be judging using the cues, the X variables. And you see over on the left, you've got the target variable, which is again the scores that the decision makers assigned based on the cues. With this understanding of decision making under the lens model, I use a structured method to conduct a systematic review. I developed the problem statement, used the lens model to examine the problem statement, and conducted a systematic literature review. I queried the OneSearch database at the UMGC library and the Bowie State University Library using a search string designed to pull articles related to the research question. The queries yielded nearly identical results from both universities. I also queried Scopus at UMGC using the same search string. Once I had all of those articles, I began my exclusion criteria. I excluded items that were non-United States studies, unless the study was really directly related to the research question. In those instances, I did keep the article. I also excluded articles that were dealing with healthcare topics as their part of their study. Also excluded, gray literature and conference papers. I then documented the details of the search results in a Prisma diagram. I reviewed 32 articles and summarized their contents in a data extraction table. And then those 32 articles, I narrowed that down even further by utilizing the impact factor for the journals that those articles were authored in. The 3 lowest articles that scored had the lowest impact factor scores for their journals were excluded, leaving me with 15 articles. Those 15 articles were then appraised using the Topopus appraisal tool, and then again the size shrank from 15 articles down to 12, based on the Topopus ratings. So now the final data set that we're using for this study are 12 articles that are credible from credible scholarly journals. So I then, after the appraisal with Tapupas, I coded, categorized, and identified themes by synthesizing the information in the 12 article data set using Atlas TI. I then evaluated the findings, the themes and findings using SERQUAL methodology and completed the systematic review with recommendations and a checklist based on the synthesis, based on the findings. So, the kind of culminating deliverable out of this is a practical checklist, no more than 10 items, kind of providing guidance to hiring managers and related professionals on how they might consider incorporating AI into their hiring processes and specifically into the actual hiring decision portion of the hiring processes. So, the findings. The three findings resulting from the data synthesis were: one, AI makes tedious hiring tasks more efficient. Items like screening resumes, conducting interviews, things that are repetitive. It has been shown that those types of tasks are really benefiting from the incorporation of AI. The second finding is that AI adoption requires a database that is populated with timely, accurate, relevant data so that the AI can, when it's mining for information, obviously, good data in, good data out, bad data in, bad data out. So it's very important to have data, good data. The other important data that needs to be considered is data that AI will learn from, rules and lessons that AI algorithms will teach itself and kind of keep itself continually learning. And then the third finding is that AI decision making yields a mixed bag of results because AI is biased. Uh, I was actually quite shocked. I mean, all of the literature is very concerned with and agrees that AI is indeed biased at this point in time. So those three findings were the main uh, themes that were in the literature pretty consistently. The SERQUAL evaluation for these findings are underway. These findings inform the conceptual model. Ironically, the conceptual model is much more similar to the original Brunswick lens model than the competency-based lens model developed by Akuli and Meenakshi. The conceptual model includes both a perception and a reality component. The reality component was added because though AI is biased now, with the right human intervention, AI will likely not be biased, or at least as biased in the future. The reality component represents objective assessments regardless of gender, race, age, sexual orientation, or disability. The question becomes, what happens if objective reality reveals a truth that humanity will not accept? For example, conclusions and recommendations. So some of the probably the first conclusion is that AI should be used for informing hiring decisions. The current use of AI for tedious tasks is really ignoring the real power of AI. The second conclusion is that AI bias must be eradicated. Humanity needs to get some rules together that are constantly being updated, that can be part of the AI algorithms. This kind of work is already undergoing in some of the global organizations right now. We need to make sure that those who are putting those rules together, it's a diverse pool of caring, competent individuals so that our AI can be caring and competent as well. But, really tackling this perception and maybe reality that AI is biased is a true challenge that we've got to overcome. And finally, humans should oversee AI, but AI should also oversee humans. So, for example, if a hiring official opts to ignore the recommendation from AI on a candidate's selection, the hiring manager should have to justify why that they have overridden that objective assessment, and the AI should then be able to evaluate that justification. If that justification seems valid, then AI will learn from it and put that into its algorithm. If indeed it's not valid, then we have to, uh, our organizational culture has to kind of change itself from giving the hiring managers all the power to just make the decision without kind of using the lens model that we talked about. Um, in addition to kind of those conclusions, the REA, the Rapid Evidence Assessment, will produce a checklist of best practices. It will have no more than 10 items on it. We'll have some credible resources on there, and the checklist will be designed for use by hiring managers and other professionals who need to, participate in the hiring process. So some of the items that'll be on the checklist will be, a change in mindset. We just talked about one where the hiring manager should not have all powerful control. Some organizations now try to combat that with panels, but a lot of times, those who are on a panel are influenced by the hiring manager. So there's got to be a way to temper that kind of power. Another mindset that we should consider changing are that the job competencies that have been popular for decades, things like experience, um, are those the right ones? And are those the right ones for all different organizations? To really open the mind up to say what competencies are truly needed in this organization, and is there a way we can devise a way to test that, to track it, to validate it continually, so that we know that we're using the right cues and competencies as we make hiring decisions. All right, and finally, the implications of this study. Adopting the recommendations in this study could have huge impacts on humanity, positive or negative. If the recommendations are correct, we may be able to hire the most caring, competent people in our government organizations, giving humanity the ability to deal with the life and death issues I mentioned before: hunger, poverty, environment, etc. If the recommendations are incorrect, humanity may find itself at the beck and call of machines, as we have seen depicted in so many times in science fiction movies. That is why additional research in this area is vital. In fact, we must devise a cost-effective way to run empirical experiments using AI. So, if we can figure out a way to do more and more experiments, not just the amount of that can occur, based on the number of uh, researchers doing primary research, but a way to simulate empirical experiments. um, I think we will be leaps ahead of knowing about this area and a host of others. The other thing is for us to develop a way for organizations to test for the best competencies for their organizational cultures. In doing this REA, the notion of job competencies and how to select those really came to the forefront. I believe that may end up being the focus of my dissertation. So we'll see where that goes. Anyway, that concludes the presentation. Thank you so much for your time today.